What's up guys, Asian here again with another PTS video, and today I just kind of want to compare the two Monster Helm sets for stamina, Maarselok and Velidreth. So Maarselok is a new Monster Helm set that is being released with the Scalebreaker DLC. At first glance it looks like it should be a pretty strong Monster Helm set. However, there are a few caveats you do want to keep in mind when you're taking a look at Maarselok, and so we'll be comparing Velidreth versus Maarselok here in this particular video, and I'll be giving you my opinions on both of them. So, just starting things off here with the sets themselves. So Velidreth is a pretty old set, but it has been a staple in stamina DPS pretty much since it's been released. So you can get this from finishing Middle of Shadows on Veteran for the helm, and then the shoulders comes from the center chest under the Undaunted Enclave on either of the three capital cities here. And so the one piece adds 129 weapon damage, and the two piece, when you deal damage, you have a 20% chance to spawn 3 disease spores in front of you after 1 second. That deal in this instance 12,693 disease damage to the first enemy they hit. This effect can occur once every 9 seconds. So again, very stable set here. It's only recently in Scalebreaker actually has been beaten out and kind of overtaken by the Maelstrom dual wield set effect here. But Velidreth has pretty much been a mainstay in all stamina DPS, kind of their setup here, pretty much since its release. Now the new set is called Maarselok. So this comes from, let me double check here, comes from Lair of Maarselok. So this is one of the new dungeons coming out in the Scalebreaker DLC. The one piece adds 1096 max stamina, and the two piece, when you bash an enemy, you spew a cone of corruption, dealing 8000 disease damage to enemies over 4 seconds. This damage is increased by 5% for each negative effect the enemies have, up to 150% additional damage. This effect can occur once every 7 seconds. So one of the big things to notice here is that Maarselok actually does not increase based on things like Minor Berserk and things like that, versus Velidreth, which does increase. So right now I do not have Minor Berserk at all. So if I go ahead and hit the trial diamond, this will give me Minor Berserk. And you will see the tooltip reflect the additional Minor Berserk bonus here. So now I have the Minor Berserk buff. You can see here that Velidreth did go up. It's now 13,519, but Maarselok is still at 8,000. So Maarselok, that 8,000 disease damage doesn't change at all. It is actually static. It is not affected by any sort of damage done or damage taken modifiers. The difference between Velidreth and Maarselok then is that 5% additional damage that you get for every negative effect that the enemy has. And this scales all the way up to 150% additional damage. So at 150% divided by 5, that is basically 30 debuffs. Now the next question is obviously what counts as a negative effect, and you'd actually be very surprised as to what actually counts as a negative effect here. Basically, if you have a sort of debuff tracker like Strendar, like I have, anything that shows up on Strendar is considered a negative effect. So things like poisons, certain proc effects, so Relequen for example, that counts as a negative effect. And I can demonstrate this for you fairly easily here. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to wait for the buffs from the dummy to wear out, just to kind of eliminate any sort of additional factors here while we're doing all of our tests here. So while we're waiting for those to run out, I do want to point out that Maarselok, therefore, if you manage to get the full 30 debuffs and you get the 150% additional damage, it can deal upwards of 20k in a single, or not in a single hit over 4 seconds. So it is actually a pretty strong set overall if you're able to get the 150% additional damage. It's obviously going to be a lot stronger than Velidreth here with a shorter cooldown. If you even get 20 debuffs, you're going to be doubling it up to 16,000. So pretty strong set overall. You actually only hit maybe about 70-75% additional damage in order to beat out Velidreth here. Now, one thing that you will notice with Maarselok is that the proc ignition is on a bash. That kind of is a little bit tricky. So for very endgame PvE players, bash weaving is actually something that has been catching on over the past few patches here. Basically what you do is you basically key bind your interrupt to a single button rather than your left click and right click at the same time, and then you basically just do a bash. You click that button at a certain point and you're able to deal a little bit of extra damage with the bash. Now the thing with the bashing is that it does end up taking some stamina out. So if you are going to be using Maarselok, you will have to deal with the fact that you do have more sustain issues because bashing does cost stamina. I believe the base cost of bash is just under 3k stamina. That's something you want to keep in mind with Maarselok here. Okay, so everything has been worn off here. So we're just going to start off here with the target skeleton, just Maarselok plain, no negative effects at all. Oh, that's right, I keybound it. That's the interrupt right there. Oh, I'm not wearing it. I should probably wear Maarselok before I actually test this out. That would be very smart for me to do, so I'll just reset the dummies real fast here. Alright, so again, first bash here. So that is the bash, and we will just reset the dummy instead of having to wait each time for combat to exit. And now next what I'm going to do is I'm going to apply Relequen and bash. So I'm on my back bar right now, and I'm just going to swap my front bar. I just want the Relequen debuff, so I don't want to activate any sort of like poisons or anything. So he has the Relequen debuff. I'm going to do the bash. And again, we're just going to reset it here. And we're going to take a look at the Maarselok damage that has been done on combat metrics. So this is the first Maarselok bash. This is without any debuffs here. So we have a tick. Each tick was 2356. Now if we take a look over here, we had the Relequen debuff on. Just one stack of Relequen. And Maarselok boosted up to 2468. So you can see here that negative effect is actually anything that if you're running combat metrics or Shrendar, again, is listed under the debuffs out icon. So things like poisons, for example, will count. So let's go ahead and see if we can get a poison to start to proc here. Okay, I'm going to poison as procced. So that should be 4 because we had the 2 Ravage healths, we had Relequen, and then we had poison. So again, if we go ahead and reset the dummy, the proc should be significantly stronger now because now we have those additional 4 debuffs here. Take a look here, you can see that the Maarselok proc did increase to 2805, and that was with 5 debuffs here. So you can see here the difference between here 2356 to 2468. That's an increase of about 110, so about 5%, give or take a little bit here. And then from 2356 up to 5 is 2805, so that is a difference of about, if my mental math is about correct, that should be about 4,400 or so. So we might have missed one of our debuffs here, but you can see it's about a 20% increase in overall damage ticks on Maarselok here. So things like Ravage health poisons, the poison status effect, the twin blade and blunt does count as well. Relequen, so basically anything that counts under the debuff out does count. Now one thing you will notice is that we procced Maarselok, we had 5 stacks of Relequen, so it is only the 1 stack of Relequen that counts. So it's not like if you have 20 stacks you get 20 debuffs, because it just counts as 1 debuff in terms of how the game recognizes it. Just keep that in mind. If you have a couple of proc sets that are like Relequen that might have stacks going on top of it, it just counts 1 debuff there. So Maarselok is fairly decent. Again, if you're able to proc it on cooldown, it should be able to beat out Velidreth because it's on a shorter cooldown and it can deal on average a little bit more damage. Just because if you think about all the debuffs that your tank has, you have just counting off Crusher, Major Breach, Major Fracture. If you have a Templar heal, you have Minor Breach, Minor Fracture, that's 5 already. You should have a Bleed from Rending Slashes. You should have Poison Injection. You should have Soul Trap, those all count, so you're at 8 right now. And then if you have double Ravage health poisons that go off, that's 10. You're at 50% increased damage right now. You have Poisoned. You have Arms of Relequen. If you're running the Axe offhand, then you have the Bleed as well. You might have Alkash up on there, and Alkash actually counts as 2, so you're already at 15. So you can see here that it's very easy to get up to a point where Velidreth, or I should say Maarselok, does end up beating out Velidreth. But again, there are a couple of weaknesses with Maarselok. One, that you're reliant on those debuffs, and 2, you do have to bash, and that does cut into your sustain by a fairly hefty amount there. So that is pretty much it for this video. So basically my conclusion is that I would say Maarselok is a set that you might want to pick up as a replacement for Velidreth. Velidreth is going to probably be more consistent and it's going to be easier to sustain because you don't really have to do anything. You just deal damage and you have that proc chance. Versus Maarselok, where you have to bash, and that does cut into your sustain a little bit there. But the damage potential for Maarselok is going to be a lot higher than Velidreth, especially in an organized raid group where you have a lot of debuffs going on to the enemy there. So that is it for this video. Hope you guys found this informative, and there will be a video coming out soon taking a look at Velidreth versus Maarselok as a parse compared to the Maelstrom dual wield. So you will be able to compare those two sort of directly. Again, Maarselok is dependent on debuffs, and on a raid dummy you're not getting all the possible number of debuffs you could get in a raid, so the Maarselok parse is going to be a little bit weaker, so just keep that in mind when you do watch that video. Again, hope you guys found this informative, and I'll see you guys in the next dungeon.